Hello and welcome to another mysterious episode of Jim Out at the Movies, the show where the two of us sit and give our opinions on movies we've seen. I'm Jimmy Price.
And I'm Matthew Oswald, and in today's episode we will be covering Gemini Man starring Will Smith for the segment Fresh or Rotten.
And for this week's review, we'll be covering a previous trailer of the week, simply known as Detective Pikachu. So let's get right into it.
The same rules apply from last week's Fresh or Rotten, and this week we'll be covering Gemini Man, directed by Ang Lee.
The movie stars Will Smith, who plays the two main characters of the film, a clone named Junior and the original named Henry, and they're both in a competition to try and kill each other. Now, after rewatching the trailer over and over again, we've come to several conclusions, as well as have some theories to share with you guys.
Now, I think that Will Smith, in this trailer, whenever I'd see him, to me, he just didn't look like that he was really enjoying being in this movie, but I just think that he's still giving it all that he has, like, in his might and his power. Even though he may not enjoy it, he's still going to do what he has to do. And the CGI in this trailer, to me, it just looked like, man, to the point where you're going to know that it's definitely fake. And a theory that I have for this trailer, and maybe the whole movie, is, hey, maybe there could be thousands of other clones out there. Who knows?
Well, it's not the actor in this trailer that I'm kind of upset about. It's kind of more the director, Ang Lee. And it's not to say he's a bad director for this film, because he worked on some great films like Face Off, Mission Impossible 2, and so on. But his directorial style doesn't really fit well with me, because he does do some slow-mo, fast motion, and all that. But then again, many people have different picks, so who knows. But Jerry Bruckheimer is also attached to this because he's worked on National Treasure, and I do enjoy the National Treasure films because I own both National Treasure and National Treasure 2 Book of Secrets. But I'm not going to get into all that because it's going to get messy. But my theories for the plots, maybe it's like a Mission Impossible style. Is he really fighting himself? Is he really fighting a clone? Who knows? Maybe it could just be in his head.
Yeah, that could be a good theory. Now, I'm going to give this film a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, and my reason for that is because, mainly for me, due to the color grading and the tone of the movie, it was like so gloomy and sad to the point where it's not going to be something that's enjoyable for me to watch.
I kind of have to disagree with you on that because I give it an 85% because I think that the color grading in this actually looks really good and fits into the theme of the story.
All gloomy.
But just the editing style and the directorial aspect of this kind of throws me for a loop and kind of gets me worried, but then again, I'll have to see the movie in order to find out.
Yeah, of course. So that is all the time we have this week for Fresh or Rotten.
So for today's review, we'll be taking a look at Detective Pikachu, which released on May 10th, 2019, and this is the first big-budget film set within the Pokemon universe.
And this film had a budget of $150 million and earned $144 million domestic-wise, while earning almost triple the budget worldwide at $431 million.
Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know that I'm a huge fan of Pokemon. I mean, my YouTube channel name for a while was Jimmy the Pokemon. I did collect the cards. I still have my card collection. I still have plushies. I've been a fan of this since like I was about 5 or 6 years old. But I do like how they took an obscure game, like this spin-off game, and decided to turn it into a movie. And how they brought in the original creators to actually make this look like the game. They went up to them and said, hey, you want to work on this movie that we're making? Because it's an interesting aspect and a way video game movies are bringing in the original creators. And I do agree that this movie and the games prior have transcended generations and cultures, and I feel that this is a big step for not only this franchise, but for video game movies going forward.
Right, now, this film stars Ryan Reynolds, who plays Deadpool in the X-Men franchise, and also stars Justice Smith, who is in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
So with all that out of the way, let's finally get into the story.
Spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it, of course.
The movie opens with Mewtwo escaping some sort of futuristic laboratory. We'll get more into that later. But Henry, who is also in this laboratory, gets attacked while trying to flee, but is saved by Mewtwo at the last second.
And this film opens up with our protagonist named Tim, who hates his father Henry for never being there for him, and he really loves his grandmother, and he's like the type of kid who isn't really into Pokemon. So Tim goes to Rhyme City to meet the lieutenant of the Rhyme City Police Department to find out of his father's supposed death.
And after knowing all that, he goes to his apartment where he meets Lucy Stevens, played by Catherine Newton, who confronts Tim about his father for some sort of news piece. And then after releasing a canister of purple gas, Tim and Pikachu finally meet up together.
At first, whenever Tim and Pikachu meet, Tim neglects Pikachu because he doesn't want a Pokemon, obviously. So whenever they decide to go solve the case together, they go meet and interrogate Mr. Mime. And after they do that, they go to an illegal Pokemon battle where the R-gas was used in the Pokemon battle from the doctor.
And after witnessing all that, they confront the lieutenant about this, but they get shot down immediately, and then later meet up with a different group of people, which is the benefactor and his assistant. And after confronting all those people, they decide to add Lucy inside to the group, finally.
All right, and then Howard Clifford, the main antagonist of this film, shows Pikachu and Tim a hologram of the incident of Henry and Mewtwo. And then, while going to a lab, the group sees a flashogram of the events in the lab of what happened with Mewtwo and everything. And while trying to escape the lab, Pikachu gets injured and then he's revived.
And who revives him but Mewtwo, which, after being led to Mewtwo, gets captured and trying to explain himself. But the bad news is that Howard, who is revealed to be the bad guy this whole time, switches bodies with Mewtwo for some sort of evil scheme.
Now, Howard's plan is to start turning everyone to Pokemon, which he starts doing. So he and Pikachu, they have a battle against each other, but it's long enough for Pikachu to distract Howard from Tim in order to switch bodies back with Mewtwo. Now, after the battle's done, Mewtwo finally explains its full intentions.
So then Henry gets pulled out of Pikachu, and Tim gets the opportunity to go back to see his grandma, his friends, and just go back to reality, back to where he once was. But he decides to stay with Henry in Rhyme City solving crimes together, and that's how the movie ends.
Now, I think that the type of plot in this film, the way they deal with the story was good, but it just wasn't very special. Now, this is a type of movie where a father and son first hate each other, but then they bond. An example that I like to use to explain my point would be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is the same type of plot basically, but they do different things. Now, the story's good, but it just wasn't very special.
I don't kind of agree with you there, because it seems like the perfect story, especially for this sort of game that they're going to adapt. And I feel that it's a great plot, because despite the fact that it's already been used a bunch of times. And I do enjoy the concept of Rhyme City, where they took aspects of Los Angeles, Las Vegas, all those big cities.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and decided to make it its own thing, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was very interesting. So now we just went over the plot, and now it's time for us to move on to the characters.
Now the first character, well, not technically the first character, but the main character is Tim Goodman, played by Justice Smith. And I feel that he doesn't do that bad, because he plays it off as the kid, or not technically a kid, but you know what I mean, as the kind of guy who has a job, doesn't want to be around Pokemon, but I kind of feel that he kind of drifts off that path a bit, kind of becomes too like a kid instead of an actual adult at times. But then again, he's kind of in that maturing process,
now,
so I can't blame him.
Yeah, now I think that his acting performance, Justice Smith, he doesn't do bad, but it's just not to the point where it's so compelling and so great. Now, his acting, it's not bad, but it just wasn't special in any way, I think. And this film also stars Ryan Reynolds, who voices Detective Pikachu. Now, to me, Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu is one of the greatest things about this film. Now, whenever I hear Detective Pikachu talking, I just think of Deadpool, but not only Deadpool, but just Ryan Reynolds in general, because he's just so funny to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of brings up that comedic vibe. He knows how to do those comedic chops right. And I know he's not some sort of stand-up comedian like Fluffy or all those other comedians, but he definitely knows what he's doing, because he has had performance in more comedic roles. And
Right.
it kind of surprises me of how he's going, and I can't wait to see his movies going forward. So the main antagonist of this film is Bill Nighy, who you may remember was a character in Norm of the North, which we covered last season.
Don't watch it.
Okay, but he plays Howard Clifford, like I said before, the main antagonist. And I kind of feel that he does give off a creepy vibe when he's in Mewtwo. When he's not in Mewtwo, he kind of gives off more as a boring manager who's like blah, 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 business, business, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But when he does transfer into Mewtwo, I feel that he kind of gets scary. And when I watched that scene, it kind of gave me chills just watching it.
Now, I think that on how Bill Nighy did in this movie, it wasn't bad, but I think that what he could have done was make the character of Howard Clifford more intimidating to where, like, you should actually fear him. Like, you should actually wonder, can I actually beat this guy? Because his character in this film, he was beat pretty easily, though, in my opinion. And this also stars Katherine Newton, who is in the show Supernatural. She plays Lucy Stevens, a.k.a. the love interest of Tim Goodman. Now, with Lucy Stevens on her acting in this movie, she was actually pretty well good. I mean, she was doing it in a way where her character is actually really likable, and whenever you're acting, you want to make your character actually really likable so that people actually say, hey, I really love this character.
Yeah, aside from Ryan Reynolds, Katherine Newton actually stands out from this film because she gives off that gravitas like an actual reporter, because I felt like the creators of this character went out and studied actual reporters doing their jobs and kind of gave her that aspect, which is kind of interesting. And I feel that she's one of the most standout performances of the film, aside from Ryan Reynolds, because let's face it, you can't top Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
So the final character we'll be talking about is Mewtwo, who is played by, sorry if I butcher these, I do not know Japanese, Rina Hoshino and Kotaro Watanabe, who were in World War Z, the video game, Runaways, and Pokemon XYZ, the TV show, respectively. And I feel they don't do that bad as Mewtwo, because getting to hear that voice from Mewtwo, I actually thought, whoa, this is actually pretty good. This is actually kind of a performance I want to see more out of.
Right. Maybe that could happen in the future. All right, so now with that out of the way, now we are on to the star rating system.
Now, the star rating system is a rating system where we give movies, quote-unquote, stars on a rank from 1 to 5. So, Matt, you ready to begin?
I'm definitely ready to begin now. I give this film a 4 out of 5 stars, and my reason for that is because even though the story is, like, not special in any way, I mean, it was built, like, decently, and also the special effects and the Pokemon that they used with CGI, it just looked great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It definitely looked great. And the characters were especially great because they had a decent cast to go along with it. But with the story, I felt that it really, really went in knowing that it's going to be a bland story. But it's the perfect story for this kind of video game that they're adapting.
Yeah.
But I feel that the characters were kind of shifting off their past. Like, Tim was acting too much of a child. Lucy was acting too much of a brat. And that's not kind of how you want to see, like, maturing teenagers into adults.
Well, I don't think they acted that way. I just think that there'd be times in the film where they'd act like just a little stale. I mean, not for all of it or anything, but they could have like done it way better, and maybe they could have done something to make the story and the plot like more special or unique, like something that's never been done before.
Yeah, but aside from all that, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. And with those ratings out of the way, it's finally time to close the case on Detective Pikachu.
Comment what you thought about the movie by telling us in the comments down below, or you could tell us what movie you want us to cover next.
Or if you want to discuss with us on social media, you could find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, and really I'm just all over the place.
You can find me on YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter.